और अब वह बहुप्रतीक्षित क्षण हमारे समक्ष उपस्थित है, जिसकी प्रतीक्षा हम सभी उत्सुकता और गर्व के साथ कर रहे हैं। हम सब के लिए ये अत्यंत गौरव और सौभाग्य का विषय है कि आज वित्त मंत्री जी के रूप में हमारे बीच ऐसी विलक्षण एवं प्रेरणास्पद व्यक्तित्व की गरिमामयी उपस्थिति है, जिनके दूरदर्शी नेतृत्व ने भारत की अर्थव्यवस्था को न केवल नई दिशा और नई गति प्रदान की है, बल्कि उसमें नव ऊर्जा और आत्मविश्वास का संचार भी किया है।
Guided by this visionary leadership, India's tax system is undergoing a transformation, evolving into a framework that is simpler in design, transparent in its approach, and firmly anchored in the principles of trust and taxpayer convenience. It is now our collective privilege and honor to invite the Honorable Union Minister of Finance and Corporate Affairs, Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman, to kindly address this august gathering.
Good evening and namaskar. Revenue Secretary was on the dais, the Chairman and also the members of CBDT, Chairman, members of the CBIC, former Chairman of both the boards and officers, probationers, invited guests, stakeholders, and also the media. It's a very gratifying moment when you stand before officials who have really performed in the last 1 year extraordinarily. I say extraordinarily because within 1 year, that is 2025, the Department of Revenue has seen such intense work. The CBDT did its own. The PRARAMBH is speaking about it today, bringing a new Income Tax Act. The CBIC was not left behind. They did the massive exercise of the GST 2.0, the new GST. And before the financial year could end, although there's some more work left, customs from the CBIC is also going through rapid changes, all keeping in mind the taxpayer. And one department, the Department of Revenue and the two boards, have delivered on the promises which were given to the people during, let us say, one budget in July 24, and the other, which we just tabled, which is yet waiting in terms of the finance bill to get passed in the Parliament. In independent India's history, probably this is the first time a department has done such, overhauling of both direct tax and indirect tax, and the intense work which the officers have done is absolutely praiseworthy. So it gives me gratification to stand here. And keeping with today's requirement, we are not just bringing simpler laws, we are not just bringing simpler rules, we are also engaging with stakeholders. We are also providing materials for people of different strata of the society to see what is happening. We are also making awareness campaigns. We are going to schools, colleges, talking to children to be aware of what tax does for the country. So in a way, 21st century has really brought in so much of difference and so much of change in the way in which government officials, departments, particularly those which have been perceived as being very rigorous, very regressive, very inward-looking, are doing the outreach and making sure that information is with everybody. So you're catching up with the times. probably you're on the top of the times, probably setting up some kind of a template for many others to follow. So I'm grateful that this launch has happened, particularly during very auspicious Navratra period. And anything started during this period will, I'm sure, find good acceptability and deliver on giving positive results to our people. So the Income Tax Act 2025 obviously replaces the 1961 Act in making it simpler and fair and clear, with all these instruments which are also being given for people to use it, will certainly set the trend for India to be seen as a very tax-friendly country. Of course, there are many more things to go along with it, but that's for a bit later. And even more important, and this is something which the media would have noticed, that from 1st April 2026 is when this new tax is going to be coming into effect. But well before that, the department has taken all the efforts to make sure multilingual outreach is happening. Digital platforms are ready for you to try and also ask questions, communicate, have a two-way sharing of information, questioning, and so on. So it was explained by the chairman, but it's worth repeating. So I would like to say a few things about what actually is this Income Tax Act of 2025. Over 4,000 amendments across 65 finance acts made the 1961 Income Tax Act a maze. It got accumulated. Nobody intended it to make a complex act. Originally, probably it was very simple. But year after year, it kept accumulating. So a collection of 4,000 amendments made it very complex. And I think we've heard this before, worth repeating again. 5.12 lakh words across 819 sections and 47 chapters. Frighteningly big. So the common citizen every year had to cope with the changes. It wasn't easy. But the language was also dense because it happened over decades. And English, the official version, and Hindi, the official version, per se, were also changing, evolving. So the Indian English and Hindi also, Hindi also had to accumulate its vocabulary and be simpler equally. So the Union Budget of July 2024 was when the promise was made to the nation that we'll come up with something simpler, and that is where the new act has come up. Work done in record 6 months, involving nearly, I'm surprised to say this, but I'll say, 75,000 person hours dedicated by the income tax officials to get this act done. And once when the cabinet cleared it, we went to the parliament to table it. It was sent to a select committee of 31 members of parliament who looked into it. They were from different political spectrum all across. And it was headed by Sri Baijayant Panda. A word of thanks to him in front of all of you. In record time, with intense number of meetings, bringing stakeholders from all over, the select committee which looked into this bill before it was brought back to the parliament had done an extraordinary work, as much as you officers did in making up this law. So the committee recommended 196 different points, of which 184 were accepted and made into, or the changes were made into the tabled act and then taken up later for discussion and passing. So actually the policy intent is underlined. extensive consultation in the making of the law and also through the parliamentarians during the select committee. A lot of collaboration and commitment is what resulted in this particular act, which got obviously passed. For those who still ask what actually has changed, is it the same thing which you've recast in 21st century language? No, it is important for us to understand that every section has been recast, chapters have been changed, words have been cut down, and modern day approach of explaining through tables, explaining through formulae, explaining through examples, have all been part of this act. They've become part. So if you look at the sections, 819 sections have now come down to be 536 only. Thank you. 819 sections has come down to be 536 only. 47 chapters have come down to be 23 chapters. 5.12 lakh words is now only half, 2.6 lakh words. I wished it was even lesser. And then I said 40 new tables have been brought in to explain, and so on. I believe it is less ambiguous, and therefore the temptation to reach the courts and ask them for an interpretation should be far lesser now. And I think in a way, it lowers errors, disputes, and compliance costs. It also shifts behavior from avoidance. If the law is simple and you're able to understand it, it shifts behavior from avoidance or confusion to voluntary compliance. And that's what I would expect. There are many more things that you can say. It's predictable, it is trust-based system now, and so on. But if I were to look at it from the point of view of a salaried individual, the confusing distinction between the previous year and the assessment year has been abolished. We now have a single unified tax year. Today, most of the individual taxpayers have already moved to the new tax regime. That tells you something. When you give people simplicity, they embrace it willingly. Under the new act, for the small business owners too, there's so much. We've heard the stakeholders speak each from their own domain expertise. India's small business owners and professionals are really the engine of our economy. So under the new act, the presumptive taxation scheme has been strengthened. Businesses with turnover up to 10 crore rupees, provided their cash receipts are below 5%, are now exempt from maintaining detailed books and undergoing tax audit. This should come as a big relief for all the MSME units, because most often they are not very clear. They think it's so complex, and therefore they have to seek the assistance of a tax audit. But then if this is so simple in the new act, I think it's a relief for them. And for, let's say, the home buyers, pre-construction interest on housing loans is now explicitly available for both self-occupied and let-out properties. This was a matter of dispute under the old act, and so many times I've heard people tell me about that's how complex it is. Under the new law, it is settled. It's literally black and white, and therefore it shouldn't lead to any confusion. Now, about PRARAMBH, which is happening today, I thought it was very clever, whoever coined it, policy reform and responsible action for Mission Vikasit Bharat, and therefore PRARAMBH. I think PRARAMBH itself is fine, but then imagine they had to bring this behind it, and therefore it's fine for the officers who are looking for what exactly is Prarambh. And those of us who have a problem saying, why should it be a Sanskrit word? Why can't it be anything else? There's some justification saying it is Prarambh because it's an acronym, and so it's all right. So the income tax website 2.0, which got launched today, is more intuitive, I understand, accessible and taxpayer friendly. We are also launching educational content and a huge FAQ, which is also user friendly because the answers are small. Questions may be several, but answers are fairly simply done. So there are also sessions, samvad, and so on. I'm not getting into that. Physical outreach is also going to be happening. Now, with all this said, I'd like to take this opportunity to convey my little message to the Income Tax Department. You're not just tax collectors. You're the face of the government's relationship with the taxpayer. I've said this before also, I think. Sorry for repeating, but they are words which have so much of an important message. And therefore, since you're the face of the government's relationship with the taxpayer, this new law gives you a clearer and leaner framework to make it simple, to make it simpler for people who want to understand it better. However, a good law alone is not enough. So it must be administered with empathy, fairness, and efficiency. I expect every officer to internalize the spirit of this new law. Internalize the spirit of this new law. The spirit is simple. And I'm sure by now several times, the officers must have themselves been discussing among one another. The taxpayer is not your adversary. Please, let's appreciate this. You understand it, but I want you to appreciate it. The taxpayer is not your adversary. The taxpayer is your partner in nation building. So I think the new law is one thing. It's got passed. It is now effective from 2026, 1st April. But I want a new approach, a new mindset. Look at somebody who comes and sits before you as a partner with you in nation building rather than an adversary. I urge income tax officers to treat this PRARAMBH as an opportunity to embrace this fresh mindset. And those probationers who have come here today, who have joined here today, I'm so happy that they are here. You are starting anew, but you are starting afresh. I want you all to have that mindset, and therefore that is important that, I'm not very good in Hindi, but my team has a lot of people who are Hindi speakers. And they said, ma'am, would you mind saying something? I said, what? There's a film song. I said, oh, no, please. I'm zero in that. Whether it is in Hindi or Telugu or Tamil, I'm not very good. He said, no, you must say this because it's so appropriate. And when I read it, actually, I remembered that song, which is very old, but I also thought it might be nice for you to hear it from me. Pardon my pronunciation. Chodo kal ki baatein. Yeah. Am I saying it right? But there's more. Chodo kal ki baatein, kal ki baat purani. आओ मिलकर लिखेंगे हम इनकम टैक्स की नई कहानी. And I understand that the name of the film from where this has come is so appropriate for us, Hum Hindustani. So, and that was from 1960, 61 Act. So many beautiful coincidences. So I think it's nice time. Chodo kal ki baatein. Let's all be facilitators. And I'm sure we'll be able to bring in that freshness that a taxpayer looks at you as a partner and doesn't get scared. I want the day when a taxpayer says, hey, this is Ugadi. I mean, for us, it was Ugadi yesterday, right? Naya Samvats for Hindi. So I would have expected a time, I hope for a time when, I, as a simple taxpayer, would come with that Ugadi Pachadi. We make a kind of a chutney with neem, flour, mango, gourd, salt, all navarasa, that kind, all kinds of tastes into it, so that you are ready to face a full new year, which may have bitter things, which may have sweet things, which may have, somewhat khatta things. So you mentally prepare. But if your relationship with your tax officer is so good, I, as a Telugu, would have come with Ugadi Pachadi and said, "Hi, New Year, come, let's share this." And have a mild chat and go away. But I suppose till today, the atmosphere was, my God, no, better not take it to him. He might see the kadua and I might see the good. Nobody would want it. That atmosphere should change. I should feel comfortable to come and say, "Hello, IT officer, I've come to say hello, Nava Varsh ka Shubhkamnaye. I'm sure this year you'll have good collection," and just go away after that without any sense of suspicion or fear or anything like that. That's the mindset change I would like to see from all of you all. It's an opportunity to build trust. We need less litigation. So our underlying thought with the new act should be that I trust the taxpayer. If I made it simple and there's no need for him to come to me, everything runs digitally, I should have less temptation to take things to the court. If there is a need, call him or her and talk and explain, so that when avoidance is less, when evasion is taken care of, you wouldn't have every little aberration to be taken to the court at all. So I would think it is necessary to build trust, reduce the need for litigation, use technology to minimize human interface, but never lose that humane touch. That should be the new Income Tax Act 2025. Make taxpayers' life easy. As I said, they are not your adversary. So with that, I'll have 6 broad expectations from all of you, if I may say that. And it's an expectation of myself also, being here with you all. The first one is implement the Samvad sessions with sincerity. Reach every corner of the country, and not just as metros, but not just the tier 1 cities, literally every district and every tehsil. So a small businessman from Darbhanga, or a young professional from Coimbatore, or a trader from, let's say, Tinsukia, or a CA from Churu in Rajasthan, all of them should be approached. There's no way in which you can, sit back this year and say, it's all right, we've launched and we had a brilliant program in Vigyan Bhawan. Make sure you reach everywhere. Use simple language, use local language, and every medium available, digital, print, radio, social media, everything should be used. My second expectation, reduce litigation aggressively. With clearer provisions, there should be a measurable reduction in disputes. So every case that goes to a tribunal, now this is going to be hard for you to accept, but I will say it nevertheless. Every case that goes to a tribunal or a court is a failure of our system. You have not been able to simplify it for them. You have not been able to explain it to them. And as a result, people go. And I want to look at it as a black mark on myself. You wouldn't care anything about it, but I would say a black mark on all of us. Simplified law. Since after 1961 and in 2025, we are still not able to make it simple for people to understand and implement. So it'll be a poor reflection on ourselves. Provide clarity and justify the demand that you have put forth. I understand it's not going to be spiked up demands, from now at least realistic demands. So if you're fighting for every rupee, But spending 50 rupee for fighting for every rupee, are we helping ourselves? So I would think it'll be our failure if we fail to convince the SSC about what you have demanded. Just and fair is what I need to have in practice. The third one, respect the taxpayers' time and efforts. Use technology to minimize the need of any human interaction. Unless absolutely necessary, respond to queries efficiently, without ever requiring the person to come to the income tax department. I would want that to be the gold standard that each one of you all would aspire to adopt. The fourth one, we must proactively engage with the youth of this country. You have young officers joining today, the probationers. They and all of us must engage with the youth. I expect the probationers also to do this. Can we all have an institutionalized, and this is a question I would put to the chairman of the board, can we have an institutionalized young professionals in CBDT, such as technologists, economists, data scientists, chartered accountants, and legal researchers into tax administration, reform, and analytics project? Do a project, get all of them together, tell what is going on the ground, and get the feedback, and make it institutionalized young professional in CBDT. Youth-led tech innovation and hackathons, innovation challenges can be developed in collaboration with the ICAI, IITs, IIMs, NLUs, and technology institutions to develop AI-driven solutions for compliance simplification and also for fraud detection. So in order to have that, you should have a youth-led innovation, tax tech innovation, and also hackathons. Of course, you've already started, I repeat, tax literacy campaigns for next generation across universities, professional institutes, and also startup ecosystems will be helpful. Now, we can have youth policy labs and young tax innovators forums to engage young professionals, startup founders, and early career tax practitioners in co-designing taxpayer services and compliance reforms. Fifth, the last but one, use technology to arrest evasion. I was looking for a better word than arrest, but I couldn't find. But I know what, I'm sure you understand what I'm trying to say. We should restrain evasion, if I can use that word, contain evasion, make technology help you on it. Making paying tax so easy that honesty becomes the natural choice. But those who are willfully evading, those who are deliberately trying to get away, technology must catch them, but you should have the technology. If you're honest, the system will make your life easy, but if you're evading, the system will find you, is the message which should go to the taxpayer. And finally, the sixth, do not let this new act meet the same fate as the old one. Why do I say that? The Income Tax Act of 1961 started as a reasonably simple one. But year after year, provision after provision, exemption after exemption, it kept growing until it became 5.12 lakh words. We have now replaced it, thankfully. That, I don't know, disease, habit, what do you want to call it? That should not be allowed to repeat itself. Every time you think you want to do something with it, please sit back, consult. Don't come with a ready solution of bring an amendment. Let this act not become the 1961 Act in that it piles on every year newer amendments and becomes a huge tome. Ensure that there are ways in which you are able to do some things without complex amendments coming into it. This should continue to remain simple. It must remain clear. You've had stakeholders and Parliament being very convinced that excellent work has been done in getting this simpler version of Income Tax Act. Let that not be, disappointed. Let the people not be disappointed or disillusionment about revenue officials should not set in because you're going on adding to the new simple law. The guidance I would have for myself, without taking too much of your time, is I had heard from Prime Minister Modi a speech in which he said Manav. It's a vision that he put forth to have a human-centric digital era. I think it was in that AI conference that he spoke about it, where, very simply, M stands for moral and ethical system. A stands for accountable governance. N stands for national sovereignty. A again stands for accessible and inclusive AI, because we are going to use AI. We need to have ethical AI. We need to have accessible AI. We need to have inclusive AI. And lastly, the last letter, V, valid and legitimate systems. So I think Income Tax Act 2025 must be rooted in moral and ethical systems. We need to strengthen and protect national sovereignty, fiscal national sovereignty. And of course, the reforms are not just data-driven, they are valid, legitimate systems that you're building on the trust of, or in trust with the taxpayer. So this is a great vision. April 1st is not too far. All of us have done too much between the time the act has been passed and till today. Ensure that we succeed. I extend my sincere appreciation to the entire CBDT, the Department of Revenue, tax professionals, officers and staff, honorable members of Parliament, and all stakeholders, including industry representatives, experts, and contributors, whose collective effort, insights, and dedication has shaped the new Income Tax Act. It is for all of us now to make it a part of our life and make it so simple that taxpayers would now be breathing a sigh of relief. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.